It's on a liquor wholesaler and a wine wholesaler. Today's date is December 17th, 2024. We've had 2 prior hearings on this. We saved today for additional questions. I do have some additional questions for Officer Strauss. So I am going to recall Officer Strauss, and then if other commissioners have questions from their review or from what's testified to today, we can address those as well. So, Officer Strauss. All right, you solemnly swear or affirm as the case may be that the testimony you're about to give the commission will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Thank you. Okay, can you state your name for the record and spell your last name?
Yeah, Officer Christopher Strauss, Strouse.
And how are you employed?
I'm employed as a officer with Indiana State Excise Police.
And I think we worked through qualifications and background last time.
Yeah.
Okay, I've reviewed the record, the reports. So I want to walk through a few things for my understanding. Were you involved in an investigation into Wabash Valley in 2020?
Yes.
What was the complaint at that time that you were addressing?
So that complaint came in late 2020. It was assigned to Officer Kreider. That complaint came from, I believe, more than one dealer location. There was a couple complainants on that. It was in reference to Total Wine having a exclusive territory for their private label products. Don't remember the exact area, but the area was small enough around the Total Wine location on 86th Street in Nora area. So much so that there was package store across the street and maybe a block or 2 down that was not in that covered area to receive those exclusive products that Total Wine carried.
Do you know, or did you find out through the investigation who set the territory?
Yes. So through that investigation, we learned, at that time, that was the only Total Wine store in the state. That was the first one and the only one. At that time, Wabash Valley, as you mentioned, was the wholesaler for that location. Through some documents on that, we learned that Deutsch Family and Park Street, we found a couple documents on both of those that outlined that exclusive territory, or that territory that they could distribute those products in.
Were citations issued during the course of that investigation?
Yeah, there was several, actually there was citations to Wabash Valley and Rhodes Manufacturing. Basically, when we started investigating the wholesaler for Total Wine at that point, which was Wabash Valley Wholesale, we went to where the location was for that. And it was in the same building that Rhodes Beverage was in. Rhodes Beverage held a beer and wine wholesaler permit that was owned by Lance Rhodes. Like we talked about last time, Wabash Valley was owned by Robert Kersey. The location was separated between the two roads in Wabash Valley with temporary or plywood walls. When we went in Wabash Valley, we came up with about 900 square feet of floor space. That was the area for Wabash Valley. There was no restrooms. There was no office in Wabash Valley. That was our first encounter with Dale Stewart. Dale Stewart was the salesman for Rhodes and for Wabash Valley at that time. We located his office in Rhodes Beverage floor plan of the beer and wine wholesaler. Also in that, we found several of the spirit products from Wabash Valley in his office that was located on a floor plan for beer and wine. So to answer your question, yes, Rhodes Beverage was cited as well as Wabash Valley was cited in that investigation.
When year was that again? 2000?
That was in, I think we finally cited them in 2021. The complaint came in towards the end of 2020.
Did you ever interact with Robert Kersey?
The complaint was assigned to Officer Kreider. However, I don't know is that we ever made contact with Mr. Kersey. He was invited to a meeting in January of 2021. However, that was at the time Prosecutor Harrison wanted to talk about the arrangement of how they were, their entire process of how they're getting products to Total Wine. That meeting included former Prosecutor Harrison, myself, Lieutenant Stewart, Officer Kreider, Jeff McKean, and I believe Dave Rothenberg was here as well. Dale Stewart showed up for the wholesaler for Wabash Valley that day. Robert Kersey did not show up that day.
How did that conversation go?
I don't know is that we learned anything at that point because they were just getting counsel, I believe, and Jeff McKean was representing him, and we didn't find out any answers to the questions. I think that we asked about contracts at the time, and the Park Street listing the territory, they said that was the contract at that point.
Did Josh Harrison give any advice on how to structure the business, set up the business?
Not that I ever heard, no.
And then any other questions on the Wabash Valley investigation from the other commissioners? I don't think so.
What did Mr. Stewart say, if anything, about his office being in Rhodes Beverage premises?
He was a salesman for both. I don't recall him saying anything specific. I know later he moved out of that office and moved his office to his home, I believe.
I know you said that you never heard Prosecutor Harrison give any advice. Did you hear anybody to Mr. Kersey or to Mr. Stewart as how to set up business? Did you ever hear anyone else from ATC give such advice?
On how to set up their business?
Right.
No.
Thank you.
So there was a subsequent investigation that we heard about after Indiana Beverage Wholesale, later to be DNA Spirits, was formed in 2022. Were you involved in that investigation?
Yes.
And what was the complaint?
So in 2022, again, assigned Officer Kreider. That was specifically for retailers and dealers, again, not being able to get exclusive product that Total Wine sells, that's specific to them. It wasn't specific about a territory. This time, just that they were physically unable to order those products.
And what did you do to start that investigation? I guess, did you go to D&E Spirits as part of this
Yeah,
investigation?
yes, we did go to D&E Spirits. D&E Spirits opened, I think, in July. Their permits start in July 1st of 2022. When we began looking into that, we realized the floor plan hadn't been approved yet, so we did do that as well. We went out and met with Dale at his new location, and I stated the address wrong last time. I know it's 8432 East 33rd Street, which is where D&E Spirits is at. During that investigation, at that particular time, he had an office area there. He had Copper Mountain products there, and then really that was the only products in the building.
Did you see any trucks there, unloading, loading of any trucks during that investigation?
So in the course of that investigation, we tried to catch trucks coming in and out to see, that was part of the complaint, was that trucks weren't being unloaded or reloaded. So we tried several times to figure that out, if that was occurring or not. Dale told us that the trucks would arrive, he would unload them, reload them, and then off to the stores they went. So Officer Kreider talked to a truck that went to Nora location at one point, talked to the driver about unloading or loading. We never really got a good feel from the drivers, other than the fact that they didn't think it could be done in 30 or 40 minutes at that time, as well as Total Wine employees thought that couldn't be done at that time, in that time frame.
Did you try to observe trucks at the location to see what was happening from the outside?
Yes, we tried to catch a few. We never seemed to catch them when they were pulling in the 2022 investigation. We were always catching them once they were out to the stores or they had already left to go to the stores.
Was there a time that you tried to track where the truck went from D&E Spirits?
Yeah, so one time in particular, when we were talking to Dale, we realized we had missed a truck that morning. And he had mentioned that he thought it went to Greenwood location. However, Officer Kreider and I talked once we left the location that day, and the fact that if you're invoicing something out to a store, you should know where it's going. So we split. One of us went to Nora, one of us went to Greenwood. In 2022, that was the two stores at that time that were open to Total Wine. And Officer Kreider did locate it at the Nora location and not at Greenwood, where he had told us that it went.
Any idea why he might have told you the wrong store?
I have no idea.
Okay. What did Total Wine employees tell you about the delivery or the unloading?
They had told us, they had told Officer Kreider in this particular thing that I had mentioned already that there wasn't a way that they could unload it that quickly and reload it. I think one of the truck drivers told me at one point that it would take them around an hour to do unloading the truck.
Was Total Wine, were the Total Wine employees, when they were unloading, also unpacking the pallets?
They would slowly, yes, they're in a very restricted space, so they would pull them out and then unload the pallets. So that could be why it takes them longer. They thought it would take longer.
Do the Total Wine employees audit what comes in when they unload the truck?
Yeah, so at one point in the investigation, and we know this is maybe skipping ahead a little bit, but we have now since 2022 seen Dale unload a truck and reload a truck with a motorized pallet jack. But during that time that we saw him doing that, the pallets are wrapped in plastic. They're labeled already Western Express or Western Carriers and D&E Spirits inside the plastic. Dale I never saw him take inventory. In past investigation, Total Wine employees have told us that that's the only truck, at that time it was Wabash Valley, that they blind receive. And when I ask them what blind receive means, they say that's the only truck that comes in that they don't have to take a physical inventory of or check in the inventory.
I'm sorry, that was the Wabash Valley truck?
That was originally the Wabash Valley truck, I believe, yes.
Thank you.
And you said you have watched him, I believe you testified to this last time. You have since watched him unload a truck.
Yes.
And how long did that take?
So he does have like a motorized pallet jack now that's self-propelled, and he can unload a full semi. It took him, we timed him that day. It was 18 minutes off and 18 minutes on. It's not giving you the exact seconds, but 18 minutes was the rounded time. So 36 minutes or approximately on and off.
Was that with the contract employee or without?
I've never seen an employee at D&E Spirits
Oh,
other than Dale. Yes.
Just Dale doing the
Yeah.
18 minutes on and 18 minutes off. We heard testimony about these products being the Wine Direct and Liquor Direct products. Are you familiar with what that means?
A little bit, yes. So Wine Direct and Spirits Direct is a program through Total Wine. Basically, they advertise that their buyers purchase directly from producers to pass the savings along to you. I recently went into a Total Wine store in Indiana, and I took a few pictures of different Wine Direct or Spirit Direct labeled products. And these labels are where the price tags are. So if you see the price tag above it, it'll say Spirits Direct or Wine Direct, if it's one of those products. Most of the products are products that I wasn't familiar with brand name wise. But I went back and compared the pictures that I took to the 2022 price guide that Dale had provided to Officer Kreider, and every one of the brands that were Spirits Direct or Wine Direct that I had pictures of matched what Dale had a price sheet for.
Could you provide those pictures to the commission?
I can, yes.
And then
So what was on the label from Wine Direct, Spirit Direct?
So if it's a Wine Direct or Spirits Direct product, it'll actually show on the price label, the price tag. It'll say Spirits Direct or Wine Direct. They kind of advertise it throughout the store. They even had a promotion going on at the time to where if you bought 2 bottles of Spirits Direct, you got 10% off. You bought 8 bottles of Wine Direct, you got 15% off, I believe is what it was. I think there were a total of maybe 11 products I was able to identify of Spirits Direct in my pictures, and 6 products of Wine Direct in there that were all brands that were on Dale's pricing sheets, or D&E Spirits, sorry, pricing sheets.
on purchase orders, invoicing, purchase orders to the suppliers, can you explain what your understanding of that was in 2022, what it might be now?
In 2022, there was one time, it was in September of 2022. We were in Dale's at D&E Spirit, talking to Dale, Officer Kreider and I asked him how he gets the orders. And he said he receives a PO from Total Wine. That includes to the primary source, whoever it is, Deutsch, Park Street, or Clay Street, I believe there's three. And that generates a PO, so they know that that product comes to him, and then he arranges the trucking, is what he said.
So when he said it includes Park Street, Clay Street, or Deutsch, what did you take that to mean?
To me, it sounds like it was like a one email order or one order that goes to all three of them collectively.
At any point during the investigation, have you seen purchase orders from Total Wine to D&E Spirits that you recall?
Not that I recall, no.
What about purchase orders from D&E Spirits to the suppliers?
Nothing stands out now.
Okay. What about invoices from the suppliers to D&E Spirits?
Say that again, sorry.
Invoices from the suppliers to D&E Spirits.
No, I have not, but I think maybe a good thing to remember that those were Officer Kreider's investigations, so they could be something that were sent to him on email, because I know he requested Dale to send him some stuff on email at one point. So those may exist, yes.
We may reach out to Officer Kreider
Yes.
to ask on that. Okay, final question, it might be the same answer. What about invoices from D&E Spirits to Total Wine?
I've seen the shipping, what he gives to the driver to go to Total Wine.
Okay. Do you have copies of those?
Yeah, I have pictures or copies of them, yes.
All right. Can you provide those to the commissioners? Yeah. Anything else on those deliveries and processes between D&E Spirits, Total Wine, D&E Spirits, the suppliers?
Just back to the pallet unloading for a second. Do you remember roughly how many pallets were unloaded? And do you know if that would have been a normal order? Was it maybe smaller or bigger?
I don't, but when he opened the truck, I mean, it was fairly full, the semi. I would say it was probably, if I were just guessing, 18 to 20 pallets. I actually think we have a picture of that too, if we want. I don't know if that's something you want. We'll show the pallets unloaded.
Total Wine?
No, in D&E Spirits. We would have a picture of that, yeah.
You have video by chance that's been doing?
We have video of the day showing the warehouse inside and outside of the warehouse. I don't know if it actually shows him unloading the truck.
Okay.
And do we know how long D&E Spirits has been using the power jack?
I do not know that.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, as we're making our list of items we want to review, do you want the video of the day at D&E Spirits as well?
Sure, why not?
Copper Mountain beverage items. What did Mr. Stewart tell you about his relationship with Copper Mountain Beverage?
I don't know is that he's just claimed that he's never been an employee, and that currently he is, warehousing their products in D&E Spirits.
And I believe this was testified to last time. Was there further investigation done in 2024?
Correct, yes.
How much of your knowledge about Copper Mountain was from 2022 and how much was from 2024?
I think we first came into contact with the original 2020 investigation with Rhodes and Wabash Valley. That's kind of when we learned kind of the basic understanding of how all that was working. 2022, obviously, we ran into the products in the warehouse again. And then 2024, I think we really kind of dug into it a little more, trying to understand the full scope of the process of how it's getting to them.
What was your understanding of who owns the Copper Mountain product while it's at D&E Spirits?
Honestly, I don't know who owns the product at Copper Mountain or why it's at D&E Spirits.
Can you explain to us what your understanding is of how the product is originally obtained from MGPI, leaves MGPI, goes to Best, and then goes to D&E?
Yes, I will explain it and hopefully you can follow me. Copper Mountain Beverage owns barrels at MGPI in Lawrenceburg, Indiana. And Lawrence, that is one of the largest distilleries in the United States. They have had over 500 barrels when we did this investigation in inventory that at MGP. When Copper Mountain wants product, they send a barrel activity request form, customer barrel activity request form to MGP employees. And then that releases the product and they are taking it to Best Vineyards. And Best Vineyards is in Elizabeth, Indiana, down in southern Indiana, and they are a artisan distillery, a winery, and a distiller. There, the product is bottled, labeled, and packaged, and then they charge D&E for that process. D&E then charges Copper Mountain Beverage for that product.
They alter the product at all at that point, or they just get it and bottle and label it? They don't alter it at all?
Well, some of it's like peanut butter whiskey and there's different flavored stuff. So yeah, they're making it to their specs, to Copper Mountain specs, I would assume.
MGP.
Best Vineyards is.
Sorry, Best.
Yeah, Best Vineyards is. Yeah.
So you said D&E pays Copper Mountain for the liquor or for? I'm sorry, Copper Mountain pays. Explain that final part again.
Okay, so I think to answer the question about Copper Mountain owns the liquor at MGP or MGPI is what it is, but then it goes to Best Vineyards and then it's processed, let's just say. It's bottled, labeled, flavored, whatever. And then Best Vineyards bills D&E Spirits and they get the product. And the same day they invoice D&E invoices Copper Beverage.
Who? Am I correct that Copper Mountain pays MGP for the product they're obtaining?
Correct. And then they pay storage fees for monthly storage fees for the barrels to be there as well.
Does Best or D&E ever pay for the product?
To my knowledge, no. For the actual liquor. I think they're paying for, D&E is buying the processing or the bottling fees to Best Vineyards.
Okay,
And then billing Copper Mountain the same day with an increased fee to cover his per case storage fee at the warehouse.
can you explain the form or the process for obtaining the product from MGP?
Yeah, so when Copper Mountain wants certain barrels sent to Best Vineyards, they complete a customer barrel activity request form and send that to MGP employees. You have to list what company it's for and what specific barrels that you want.
We heard previously that Mr. Stewart was picking up the product at MGP and taking it to Best.
Mhm.
How would he get Copper Mountain's product from MGP?
I obtained 3 different barrel activity request forms from MGP this year. The first one of the year was from Chance Roads. And then the following 2 had Dale Stewart listed on there for Copper Mountain Beverage and his title was listed as Vice President of Sales.
Can you tell us that one more time?
Yeah, so the customer barrel activity request form that is sent from Copper Mountain to MGP, requesting what barrels they specifically want. That form was completed by, or had listed Chance Roads on it. And then the other 2 forms had Dale Stewart listed as Vice President of Sales
Or Copperman?
for Copper Mountain Beverage. Yes, ma'am.
And around the date of that form?
I can tell you exactly. The last one I know was in July of 24. They were all 3 from this year. Those were the ones for this year.
So less than 6 months ago. We have a document that shows that Dale Stewart was the Vice President of Sales for Copper Mountain.
That's what it shows, yes.
Who completes those? Does MGP complete those or does the person coming to pick up the barrels complete that?
So from what I understand, it is a form that the customer, which would be Copper Mountain, would be sending to MGP prior to them picking up the barrels. Cause it has the opportunity to arrange the transportation of how the barrels are gonna get there, if they need transportation provided, or if they're providing the transportation as well.
Can we get those copies of those three?
Yeah.
Customer barrel activity forms? That
Customer barrel activity request form.
request forms. As to Copper Mountain, we heard there was a DSP, but it was surrendered. To your knowledge during this investigation, can you confirm that?
Yeah, so I did confirm with Tax and Trade Bureau that they no longer have a DSP. It was originally at the 770 Andico Road. I believe Lance maybe spoke about that as well.
And I'm sorry, we're using abbreviations. Can you tell us what a DSP is?
Distilled spirits plant permit. It's a federal permit to distill spirits.
What other Indiana permits or federal permits does Copper Mountain have?
Currently, I believe, Indiana primary sources are expired. They have you said Copper Mountain, correct?
Yes, looking at Copper Mountain.
Okay. They have a Indiana wholesaler permit currently. And I think that's at the Andico Road address,
When you say Indiana wholesaler permit,
or sorry, a federal wholesaler permit.
and is that in Indiana?
I think it is listed at Andico Road, yes. And they showed one as well in Washington State.
Is there a wholesaler still at the Andico Road address in Plainfield?
No.
How do you know?
We've had an officer go by to check, and actually it's listed on websites for lease now. Those locations are as well.
As far as the expired Indiana primary source, what was the basis for the qualifications on the Indiana primary source?
It had listed a Washington State permit on there, but we never did. There was nothing attached that I ever saw.
Have you ever been able to confirm whether they have a Washington state permit issued by the state?
Yeah, so earlier this year, I emailed Washington State Liquor and Cannabis Board. And they do show registered with the Secretary of State in Washington. However, they came back and said there's no liquor endorsement on any of their permits, and they didn't have any record of Chance or Lance having any alcoholic beverage permits.
And did you say that was by email?
Correct.
Do you have a copy of that email?
You can.
Do you have, we talked about the purchase orders and invoicing between Total Wine, D&E, and the suppliers. Do you have records of purchase orders or invoices between MGPI and anyone, Best and anyone, D&E and anyone, Copper Mountain and anyone?
I have, yes, so I do have bills from Best Vineyard to D&E, as well as I have the invoice that Dale provided to, Copper Mountain for the same date. I think those were in April of this year.
We get copies of those. And then what is your understanding of the transportation and what triggers the transportation between MGP to Best, Best to D&E?
Copper Mountain would tell MGP, I think they testified that they were picking it up and taking it to Best. And then at one point, Classic Transportation was picking it up and taking it to the wholesaler. And now I believe Dale mentioned that he is arranging that now.
And then who or how does product get triggered to move from one to the other? Like who decides when it's time is the better question.
I really don't know if I can answer that. I don't know.
From some of the earlier testimony, there seemed to be emails back and forth between multiple people on what product is where and where it should go. Have you seen any of those emails?
The one email I know that I have a trail of, had to do with some of the Copper Mountain product being sold to Crossroad Vintners, which is another wholesaler here. Those emails, were between, Crossroad Vintners ordering, Copper Mountain product. They included several different email addresses, one of which was Dale Stewart's at cmbeverage.com, Copper Mountain Beverage. Kristen Pappas was on there as well, and she basically says, Dale, do we have these in stock? So, and then they go back and forth and arrange transportation. I believe John Holmes was the manager at Crossroad Vintners that worked on scheduling the time to pick up those products from D&E Spirits, Copper Mountain products at D&E Spirits.
We can get a copy of that email.
Yes.
You mentioned Crossroads, so we'll go with that direction of product now. Who does Crossroads get the product from?
They are purchasing from Copper Mountain Beverage. However, they go to D&E Spirits to pick up those orders.
Who do they distribute the product to?
So Crossroad Vintners, from what I understand, has been distributing Copper Mountain products since June of 2023 at some point. And I was provided their customer base, and they have approximately 45 different customers, and then Total Wine stores as well.
45 different customers in addition to Total Wine.
Correct. That's approximately, yes.
And that was for that whole period from June of 23 until current.
That was in October that I requested that. So through October of 24, yes. And I have that report if you would like it.
Let me get a copy of that report. The other product, the other Copper Mountain product at D&E Spirits. To your knowledge, if you know, where does it go?
I'm not sure anymore. I have no idea.
Okay. Who? If anyone pays D&E Spirits for that product?
So, yeah, so go back a little bit. In 2022, that product went to New Jersey. Total Wine is what we were told by Dale. Now I don't know for sure. It seems like he maybe testified to something different. The product is, I think he gets $3 per case is what he told us the last time we talked to him. And if you look at the invoices from what he's charged from Best Vineyards and then charges Copper Mountain and divide it by the cases that he has, it adds up to, he's charging them $3 extra per case for storage is how it works. And he's made that comment to us before as well, so.
So this product may be different now than it was in 2022. The process may be different.
Yeah. Correct.
Any other questions?
Just a comment. I was looking back at the affidavit from Dale Stewart. Signed on June 1st of 22. And he says he has no interest or any other permits to produce wholesale retail alcohol beverages. And he goes on to say that his company shall have no, that his company has any financial interest whatsoever, including oral written contracts, arrangements with Rose Beverage, which then went on to be Copper Mountain. I just find it amazing that we have proof of two separate occasions where he is using email and a title from Copper Mountain. I find that surprising. That after that day, repeating that after that, we have proof of otherwise what's stated in the affidavit, it seems.
Officer, how long did you say? The Crossroads has been getting product Copper Mountain product
Um,
from D&E?
since June of 2023 at some point.
Your knowledge, who else does D&E send Copper Mountain products to?
Currently, I'm unsure. I don't know.
Makes sense.
Yeah, in 2022, he made the comment that it was going to New Jersey or Total Wine, but I think something's changed since then, so.
When did he make that comment?
I believe he made the comment in testimony here of how he was billing it. Yeah, I think something with the billing was different. I can't recall exactly how he said it, but
In testimony or in a statement with excise?
I believe he said something with the billing and testimony
Oh, you mean in the
in
testimony?
this
In
hearing.
this
Yeah,
matter?
Yeah.
Okay, not in the 2022 investigation. Did he provide you other written documents or other evidence during the 2022 investigation?
specifically what type of product or documents?
Invoices, purchase orders?
I think most of those would have went email to Officer Kreider. Yes.
Okay. If those exist, could we get a copy of those?
Yeah.
You have recordings of the statements he gave during any of the investigations?
Yeah. So I think we do from 2022 have recordings from when we were in his establishments. Yes.
And they've been transcribed,
No.
they're just recordings.
Yes.
Did we get the recordings?
You can.
He testified about during the Wabash Valley investigation, possibly what they considered a contract was the territory map or statement. Have you ever been aware of a contract with between Indiana Beverage Wholesalers or D&E Spirits with a supplier?
We've always been told that they don't exist. However, there was a document that was sent to Indiana Beverage Wholesaler or Indiana Beverage, I believe it is, in northern Indiana. And we actually, Lieutenant Stewart took a picture of a cover letter that was in Dale's office at one point for a trademark infringement. But specifically in that document, we reached out to Indiana Beverage. They make reference to a 75-page contract that they received. And when we reached out to them, that 75-page contract was from Deutsch Family Spirits.
And why did Indiana Beverage in northern Indiana reach out what's now D&E Spirits on that?
Cause originally Dale set up as Indiana Beverage Wholesalers, was his name, and they are, I believe they go by Indiana Beverage. So similar names, concern about industry confusion.
We get a copy of that letter.
We can't.
I've been taking notes. I will make sure it's not here in just a second. Any other questions?
Other questions so far?
I think I'm done with questions, so. Anything?
I have a question about the, excuse me, palletized orders and the invoices you've seen. Have you seen any invoices that indicate how the orders are placed that cause that, for lack of a better term, palletization?
No, as far as when they come in on the trucks,
Right, I know
no.
he said, he testified on November 19th that they're already palletized by individual store by each supplier. And I was wondering if there's evidence to indicate whether, for instance, Total Wine makes that specific request, or whether Dale Stewart makes that request.
No, as far as emails or, any other records like that, we haven't been provided any of those, so of how the orders are actually organized, but we do know that they're all coming from the exact same warehouse. They're loaded on the truck from all these different, the 3 or 4 different, primary sources. They're all getting packaged at that one warehouse, wrapped and then sent.
Either in Jersey or Florida.
Correct.
And as far as those contracts having been requested, in reviewing some of the testimony previously, or some of the reports, it was indicated that there was a formal request, subpoena made for those contracts, correct? Or do you know, are you aware?
I'm not aware of a subpoena now.
Okay. And when you requested them yourself, you did something, correct?
There has been requests for contracts, yes, and they've always said that there's no contracts exist.
And have they given those answers verbally or in writing? Or-
I don't know of any in writing, no.
Thank you.
Seems like some relationships that are just not, fully disclosed. It's not to my satisfaction. Seems like something is kind of being covered up. Look forward to seeing the additional documents. I don't think there's gonna be anything that changes that. Looks like some should be holding permits that they're not holding, and the side note, a note that on the transportation side, it sure looked like there were unlicensed carriers that were at least being used in the past. So kind of all the way around, the business relationships seem very flimsy and fluid and changing, and I don't know if that's just a way to kind of confuse the situation or why that is, but I'm just concerned that not everybody maybe appropriately licensed and being regulated as need to be in the state of Indiana.
Um, I would like to take you on a different track here.
All right.
Know if it's appropriate. So someone can kick me, although she can't because there's no board right here. How long have you been an officer in the X?
Just over 17 years.
Sounds from your testimony that you're pretty experienced in understanding the alcohol process of manufacturing, transportation, wholesaling, and retailing. Is that a fair statement?
Sure.
You've been asked some very direct and pointed questions about transportation, contracts, and billing things. So one thing I'm intrigued about, I think we heard last time that D&E at one point would get inquiries from other retailers around the state. Then they knew an address and a phone number, they would call D&E, Mr. Stewart, and get no response back. Is that an accurate statement?
Yeah, there had been requests or emails that, yes.
And in many cases, at least I understood, there was no phone call back. So somehow retailers or others knew of D&E and knew what the product was and were trying to get some of it. Is that a fair statement?
Correct.
And we heard from Mr. Stewart that he may be a limited distributor. He has only very few clientele. Is that a fair statement?
Correct. Total Wine specifically, yes.
Well, I was gonna say only Total Wine,
Yeah.
but maybe there's a few others.
Yeah.
And that he has no desire or intent to expand that. Is that a fair statement?
I believe he testified to that, yes.
And from the discussions you had today and that we heard last time, spends an hour or two with this. I know that's not accurate, but according to him, at one point, it only takes about 30 minutes to turn around a truck, to take it off and put it back on. There's probably hours in billing, some other things, but he said he just doesn't want to work hard. Is that a fair statement?
I believe he testified
to
to
Here then heard of.
something to that effect, yes.
Yeah, I don't have verbatim, but I'm characterizing what I studied last night. How many other locations, wholesalers like D&E are there around the state? Variety, like just number 10, 100?
I don't know of any that bring a truck in that unloads a truck and reloads a truck in the same day and off they go, where they don't have an actual inventory.
But what I'm getting at is, I don't know of anybody who works this little and has inquiries and isn't willing to sell a product, to expand their base, to widen their influence, to improve their net worth.
Mhm.
And I'm suspicious that of this whole process that we've heard over the last 2 days. If others are in that same boat, are there other businesses like D&E that said, I'm busy enough, I don't want to make more money?
I think typically any wholesaler that you talk to would love to expand their business to a larger scale. Yeah, to just not take extra business. No, I don't know of any place like that.
Do you know of another business like D&E that has had inquiries from people who want to buy, want to obtain their product, and they've just said, nah, or they don't respond at all?
Nothing specific to where, no, not in the same scope of this, no.
And I suspect there are other wholesalers like D&E that don't want to send one case of whatever. There is a product distribution cost for everything, so I'm talking about in general categories. I just am in disbelief that someone who works an hour on a Monday with some paperwork back and forth wouldn't want to sell another case or cases or respond to an inquiry, or at the very least say, sorry, we're not doing it. If I understood the testimony, people would call their other retailers who wanted to obtain the product, made phone calls, never got a word back.
Mhm.
Is that a fair characterization?
Yeah, I think, yeah.
And in your experience of 17 years, and I think you have a great understanding of the distribution, the transportation, the bottling and all of that. This has been a revelation to me about how diverse this whole process is. In my mind, you make Coke, you bottle a Coke, and you sell a Coke. But apparently, that's not the case with alcohol.
Correct.
So is this, you have a wealth of experience and knowledge about the process, I think. And is this an unusual process in your experience? Are
Yeah.
you aware of anything else that has equaled or come close to this?
I think there's smaller wholesalers, but no, to this scale and running this much product through it, no.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions. Thank you.
What is your estimate as to how much product is going through D&E?
Well, it's one semi truck according to Dale. Sorry. Originally it was a semi truck a week. Now they have 2 to 3 semi trucks a week. The time we were there this year, I believe in July or August of this year, there were 2 trucks. One truck had 2 store orders on it and one truck had 3 store orders on it. So they were going to 5 Total Wine stores that day is what they were going to.
Do you have any estimate or idea of the value of? I mean, I know you've got different products on different trucks, but any way to estimate the value of what's going through there in a day?
No, I wouldn't have any idea.
Can I ask you a question on that? Or
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
if I understood, I hadn't heard the 2 or 3, at least I don't recall the 2 or 3 truck expansion for one. But I understood the one truck was on a Monday, is that correct?
Mhm.
Are these 2 or 3 trucks now still on Monday, or are they spread out throughout the week?
The last time we investigated it, yes, they were still on Monday, so I assume they are.
Okay, and I
Yes,
asked that
still Monday.
because he's still not working like I do, 40 hours a week or whatever. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And this is a question that I probably should remember from earlier, but what exactly is Deutsche's relationship in all of this?
They're a primary source of supply of alcoholic beverages.
And they're located in,
Honestly, I don't know where they're located. Not in Indiana.
Connecticut, according to what I have in mind. Thank you.
I have no further questions.
Good for now.
I'm gonna run through the list of documents we discussed,
Okay.
For you and the record of what's probably gonna be added to all of our binders here. Pictures of the Wine Direct, Spirit Direct. Invoices given from D&E Spirits to the driver to take to Total Wine. Pallet unloading picture at D&E Spirits. Video from D&E Spirits that may or may not include the unloading, but shows the warehouse. 3 MGPI customer barrel activity request forms. Copy of the email from Washington State on the Copper Mountain permit. Copies of D&E and best invoices as it relates to Copper Mountain products. Copy of the email. Can't remember if it was
Crossroads.
a purchase order or just but yes, with Crossroads.
I think that was the one that had Dale and Kristen and everybody in it.
Purchase order and invoices that may have been emailed to Officer Kreider during the
Yeah.
2022 investigation. The report from Crossroads on selling the D&E or selling the Copper Mountain product. Recordings of the statements given in 2022 by Dale Stewart. And the letter regarding the contract that was sent to Indiana Beverage Beer Wholesaler.
Yes.
Is there anything else that I asked for that I've missed?
I don't know if you asked for this or if we have it. Do we have the Copper Mountain product list to compare to the direct labels? What product?
Do you want D&E Spirits price sheets?
Yeah, that's what I'm
Yep.
looking for, sorry, do you need price sheets to tie that back to the direct wine and spirits?
Yep.
Thank you.
Miss, did you suggest that you asked for the pictures of the wine and spirit direct labels or whatever they're called?
Mhm.
Did you ask for
Yes.
that? Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Mr. Stewart testified earlier. This is not a request for that. Mr. Stewart testified earlier that when asked about the territory, specifically the parking lot being the territory, he testified, I believe, that Deutsch is the one who put the territory in place.
Yeah, so, I think, is that one of your requests? We do have those documents. That was when it was provided to Wabash Valley, I believe. We have a document from, Deutsch and from Park Street both that kind of give an area. The email from Deutsch actually shows the outline of the exclusive territory. And it is emailed to Dale, Stewart. And that was when it was Wabash Valley. We don't have anything under D&E Spirits that I'm aware of.
And is it normal for a company, corporation, whatever you want to say, such as Deutsch, somebody in their chain in the process to set a territory for a distributor?
I think that's probably open to interpretation on contracts, like Anheuser-Busch will do like counties or set an area. So I don't know, historically speaking, how small of areas typically are, but usually a county from what I'm aware of, at
Huh.
least.
Contracts, that's a novel idea. Thank you.
This is going on probably beyond the scope of what you prepared for today, but maybe a history lesson for the commission on territories. There was a testimony from Lance Rhodes about transshipping. Can you generally explain the difference between what was transshipping and what is now contracts?
I cannot, I don't
Okay,
know.
that's fine. It's beyond,
Sorry.
it's probably beyond what you thought you were gonna be at today.
Yeah. We might need a historian for that.
I know. We'll see if anyone needs that history lesson. Do we want the territory agreements with the caveat they were with Wabash Valley?
Yes, please.
Okay.
I guess I was.
Anything else?
I'm through.
I have to. Review all of this.
Yeah.
All right, I think that concludes today's proceedings.
I have a question. Didn't we invite Mr. Stewart back to the owners?
We may have, I don't think he was under subpoena for today, although I guess there could be an argument that the hearing was continuing, he was subpoenaed. I advised his counsel that he did not need to be here today since we were questioning
Okay.
Officer Strauss. If we have additional questions, I think through this process, we can either do it similar to an interrogatory or call him back in.
That's fine.
Testify. All right, that concludes today's hearing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.